Hi, everybody. TJ here at urlaw.org, and we have another very special guest. In fact, he's here for the second time in recent history, Dr. Graves, and we're going to talk about how to win in court without a lawyer and learn a lot about what he's done over the years. And he's done an exceptional job of putting together one of the most reputable and solid programs out there to learn how to deal with the law in a very practical and useful way. I know personally that many of our members have spent, I recommend all of our members use the course as part of their overall study of how to win and deal with legal issues they may be facing. So it's really an honor and a pleasure to have Dr. Graves here today. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're still a busy fellow these days, and your dog back there keeps you busy, and you've got a lot on your hands with a lot of people around the country that do study your programs. So just to remind everybody, if you along the way want to find out more information about the program, our link to the website, our direct link is urlaw.org/JD. It used to be called Jurisdictionary is the main emphasis of the course. So I use JD as our shortcut. All right. So Dr. Graves, thanks again for being here.
It's a joy. Any chance I get to sing this song.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know you love what you do. For those who maybe don't have a great deal of background on you, maybe we can give them just a brief introduction to you that you can give about your background and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Well, I was a carpenter. I was a fishing boat skipper. I drove a ferry boat on the Chesapeake Bay. I did a lot of things. And then I met a fellow who we went sailing together, had a lot of fun. He decided to go to undergraduate and then went to law school. And I was 39. And he said, well, why don't you at least sit for the LSAT, the law school aptitude test? So I did, scored well. And so he said, well, why don't you apply to some law schools? And I was teaching in a private school at the time. And I told the headmaster, I'll apply to one school. If they are stupid enough to accept me, I'll go. Otherwise, I'll stay here and teach the rest of my life. Well, they were stupid. So I went. And that's my story.
Okay. What law school was that, by the way?
That was Stetson College of Law, which, by the way, people think it's a hat. Actually, people from Stetson participate in these national competitions with Harvard and other big schools and usually win the competitions because I think primarily from a Professor Swigert and a Professor Smiley and a Professor Brown, who were really, really clever people. Can't say a lot about my other professors, but I did think a lot about those three. And it was a very special school. I don't know how it's doing now, but it was doing very well when I went. And I read all the books, went to all the classes. Daddy wasn't paying for it, so I figured, well, I better make the use of it. And in the process, my friend, I learned that there are some things that the American people have a right to know.
Mm-hmm.
And that it isn't rocket science. And so in 1997, we started this website. It was then called Jurisdictionary. And, and people just latched onto it. They said, wow, this is great. So it's just been growing since then. And thousands and thousands and thousands of people are beginning to realize you have power that you didn't know you had. And it's called the rules of court. It's really very simple. The story doesn't amount to a whole lot other than trying to encourage people to see that this power that you have that you don't know about yet, if you don't know about it yet, is something that's been purchased for you by the sacrifice of way too many people already. And the more of us who learn this power, how to promote peace, that's what the power is. Justice is a mechanism that is designed to promote peace among human activities. And why has that been hidden from us? So I decided we'll just bring it out from behind the veil and give people a peep. And I know it could be a lot better. My work could be a whole lot better than it is. Maybe someday we'll have some helpers to help me make it better. But In the meantime, at least somebody's telling you what you otherwise would not know.
Absolutely true. We've had many, many, many people over the years who have turned to the course to learn those procedures. I just say, I tell everybody, no matter what you're doing, whatever you think the law is, you better know the procedures because they're going to get you on that no matter what.
Mhm.
So if you, and it, there's the, actually, that's the easiest part of law to learn, in my opinion, the basic process of motions and proceedings, because it's all written out for you. It's all spelled out directly. It's not that part's not even a secret. You just have to go know where to look, and it's right there in front of you as to what's going to happen next and what do you do next and how do you reply. It's just amazing how many people have come to, on my calls that we do, it's talk about how they incorporated that into what their situation was and what a difference it made. So, I can give you a lot of testimony about that. And it's a well placed together course. I've listened to it and watched it many times, and I enjoy it every time. I always pick up something new. There's, our brains are constantly seeking new information, and I can choose Dances with the Stars or Dr. Graves. And Dr. Graves has a better haircut anyway, so I'm gonna go with him.
I don't have to pay any money at all to get my haircut.
And so that's what I've always enjoyed about the course, and it's great to see people have successes because we're out here just a group discussing law and legal issues, and it just comes up constantly as an important element. So anybody that doesn't have that should have access to that. So I know you've got some goals that you want to, where you're going with this, what you want to achieve next. I mean, certainly, obviously, you want to sell more courses, but there's a reason behind your course. There's a reason you created it and what motivates you to do this. And so I'd like you to share that story with people if you could.
Oh, I'd love to. Children are weeping. Adults are afraid. People are shooting each other and setting fire to cars. And this is not what we want in the future. And I believe that there is a future. And the way to achieve that future is to begin to understand that law and order is the glue that can hold us together. We're way too fragmented right now. But we have, let's do this. Okay, we have a system. Now, when I use the word system, I don't include the lawyers that grapple and squeeze and lie and cheat and hide the ball and twist the rules and, I think, abuse our American heritage in such a way that they should be taken out behind the barn and beaten to death with a 2x4. Yes, I did just say that. However, there are some good things, and they are called rules. There's rules of evidence. There's rules of procedure. There are rules of juridical reasoning, where this is something that goes beyond my course. I have some of this in there, where judges are supposed to be required to follow these rules of juridical reasoning when making determinations in a case. Well, they don't even teach it anymore in law school. They don't talk anything about God in law school, the one, the reality in which we move and live and have our being that determines the destiny of men and nations. They've decided we can't talk about that anymore. So now we're stuck with the idea that if they get away with their elitist ideas, that your rights no longer come from deity. You're not born with any rights. You only get whatever they want to give you. And I think the time has come for the American people to lead the charge in this world.
I think you're hitting on something. Corruption. One of the most dangerous things right there, you're just hitting on it, is this idea of democracy, that somehow the mob can rule. And ultimately, that's not how it really works.
There's a set of rules. And the mob has no rules, except it has a leader. That's what an autocrat is, someone who wants to have the preeminence. That's something which I just picked up on a couple of days ago. The desire for the preeminence, men and women have that. And if you think about it for just a little bit, maybe you'll come to agree with me that a tremendous proportion of the terrible things that we endure as humans result from somebody wanting to have the preeminence, somebody wanting to rule us, somebody wanting to tell us what's right and wrong and push us around and maybe chain us to our bunk and get us out in the morning to cut artichokes for the rich people.
And now,
I
and throughout
kinda-
history, even in the Bible, the people will seek that master if they're just
Yep.
lazy.
Yeah, read
That's what happens.
the third letter of John if you want to read about it,
Yeah.
or read about Caiaphas and so forth. Read the essay on my course read it on my website, frederickgraves.com, FREDERICKGRAVES.com. You can look at everything that I've written other than the course. The course isn't there. But we begin to learn that there are these truths. And the truths are, we could call them lighthouses, my friend. They offer to guide us to safe harbor. That safe harbor is peace and prosperity for the people. Peace and prosperity for the people. Seems like a good idea. I don't know.
Yeah, sounds good.
Seems like a good idea. So if there are lighthouses that will lead us to that peace and prosperity for the people, maybe it's a good idea for those of us who are beginning to find out what these lighthouses are to begin to share them with our friends down at the barber shop or wherever we are. And not only that, to begin to teach them to our children in a way that is not being done by the churches. It's not being done by the media. It certainly is being done by the bar, where people make more money because you don't know.
Yep. Yep. It's absolutely based on pure ignorance.
What a hoot, right? I get to do this.
I mean, I have a story just recently of a fellow who I spoke to, and he had just gotten brought up on a criminal charge. His attorney, who was his best friend from college, went to law school. He could totally trust her, charged him $100,000 retainer fee for this case. And he had to keep it at $100,000 as they spend the money.
Oh.
And I said, well, that's really a nice friend. I said, so what's the story? She said, well, says I need to just go do a plea. And I looked at what's going on in the case. I said, you can win this case. And he says, but I just need to go do a plea. And I said, well, that's good. So how much did she say you'll get? Oh, 3 years. I said, did she promise to come visit you in prison too? I mean, that's a great deal. And $100,000 plus.
Yeah, wow.
Your best friend. So yeah, you got a good attorney. That's an oxymoron, in my opinion, generally speaking.
I'd like to address that briefly, if I may. I have known some really good people who were litigators.
Yep.
I think maybe there were 3 of them in 36 years. The rest of them would lie and cheat and steal and twist and hide the ball. Now, lawyers who do wills and trusts and set up property deals and set up corporation, things like that, they're, for the most part, they're just a good bunch of people who studied how to do that, and they're fine. But when you go to court, you got a prosecutor who's ambitious. You've got an attorney on the other side, whether he's the plaintiff or the defendant. He wants to get all the money he can from his client. And the American people, they have no clue what's going on. It's just like, take my car in to get it repaired, and all I needed was a fan belt. They want to change the entire exhaust system. And we don't know any better, so we would let them get away with it. Why? If we can learn this, you can learn the most important part of this in 8 hours. 8 hours, you learn how to control the judge. So, I mean, why are we not teaching this to our children? Why are we not understanding that? Well, let me go back a bit. That beyond just how to win in court, there are these other rules, the rules of juridical reasoning, for example, the rules that we inherit from the common law cases, the appellate court opinions that have evolved over the years, and that unfortunately and scarily in the recent maybe 40 or 50 years, we're seeing an increase of absolute insanity in the high courts, because again, they're not teaching jurisprudence in our law schools. But by golly, we can be teaching that to our children. Nothing will stop us if we just roll up our sleeves and say, look, we've had enough. We're not going to put up with this anymore. We see it for what it is. It isn't difficult to learn these rules, and we're going to teach them to our children, and we're going to teach these common law principles that come from these old ancient cases like Hadley versus Baxendale and Kirksey versus Kirksey and Palsgraf versus Long Island Railroad, and all of these things, that they're not hard to understand. And we can do this. And part of why I appreciate your letting me go on and on like this is I hope more people will come alongside and try to help me and the team I hope to have very soon to make this thing a reality, to go ahead and create the curriculum materials, show them to the mothers and fathers of the United States of America, and ask the mothers and fathers of the United States of America, wouldn't you like your children to have this? And I think mothers and fathers of the United States of America will say, yes, we do, and we will help you, and we will get this into the schools. First, we have to create those curriculum materials. In the meantime, let's be teaching everybody how to win in court, how to not go to prison, how to not have to pay somebody $100,000 because he wants to sell us an exhaust system when all we needed was a fan belt.
But at least they'll visit you in prison. I mean, come on, that's a good deal. Yeah. So I walked by a car yesterday. I walked by a car yesterday and they had the sticker on the back. I voted, and I go, well, how'd that turn out for you?
Yeah.
That did a lot.
Yeah.
No, this is the kind of stuff that makes a real difference in people's lives when they learn it, when others learn it, when the kids learn it, when we help people help themselves. I tell people, I don't give legal advice. I don't help you. I just help you look in the right direction so you can help yourself. It's the teach a man to fish theory. It works quite well for me. So it's very empowering to know when people do pick up and take the reins that they really can do these things in spite of the fear, in spite of the anxiety, the intimidation, because it's a 90% intimidation game. Once you get past that, you start to see the reasoning of what you can do. It's powerful to have these, know a little bit about procedures, know where to go look it up. So have you, over the years, I know you've had a ton of people probably tell you examples of how they might have incorporated your training into their given cases. Do you have any stories in mind you could share?
I got an email this morning from a fellow. He was sued by an auto rental company, and he just used the teachings in my course that are incredibly easy to learn and forced them to dismiss. Now he's going after them for damages. It's so easy to do. I guess that's what amazed me. 1997, I had no idea that this was going to blossom out like it is. It was just a hobby. I was still practicing and had my office and had clients and went to court and did the same things in court that I now teach people how to do. But back then, there wasn't much to it. It had to start somewhere. So it was just a few things. And I think I had one thing that was called the Easy Guide. And it was just fun for me. And then all of a sudden I realized, my gosh, people are really picking up on this. They're actually learning that, wow, now I know what hearsay is instead of what's Charlie or Sam or Susie told me what. No, now I actually know what it is. It's an out-of-court statement offered to prove the truth of what it says. I mean, that is not rocket science. But if we don't know and we go to court and we don't have a clue, and the lawyer starts throwing these words at us that we don't know what they mean, and they're all common sense. I mean, we all know what a gigabyte is now, or a terabyte.
Right.
Who knows what the next byte is going to be, but we all know what those things are. We know what a CPU is. So now we're going to learn what an interrogatory is, for example, which is just written questions they have to answer under oath. What's so difficult about that? We call it an interrogatory. It's easy to spell. It's a written question they have to answer under oath or go to jail. And this belongs to each and every one that's here today, that's listening to us today. And I just think that maybe that's really important, that maybe more and more and more and more and more of us begin to understand that this is not only part of our opportunity, it's part of our duty as Americans to uphold the rule of law and use the tools and weapons and procedures of due process to make these judges and make these lawyers pay attention that we are not fools and we're not going to be fooled.
And it's I mean, I can give you two examples. I've spoken with people who had attorneys who wouldn't do the interrogatories. And I'm thinking, well, that's not that hard, but why won't they do that? Or another example was the fellow was in court, and the prosecutor brings up a slide of an application, says it's a blank application, it's just a blank piece of paper. And he says, this defendant was filling these out and submitting these and doing this and then the that. I said, okay, excuse me, objection, hearsay, that he wasn't there and it's a blank piece of paper. It doesn't prove anything.
Well,
he
if you don't do anything, you ultimately end up on the floor.
Yeah. And so it was a good example. I said, and everybody I was told that to, they go, that's hearsay. I said, there you go. That's an example of hearsay. It's not that hard. And certainly it's not even evidence. It's nobody's testifying to it.
And you put a stop to their hijinks. And it's not only effective, it's fun. And when these people come along and they want to break the rules, and I think some of them, they don't even know they're breaking the rules. They're just out of control because legal education is just a mess in this country. And I get that from the dean of the law school at the University of Florida actually said that at a meeting. So they may, we give them some kind of credit. We'll say they just don't know any better. But whether they know any better or not, I don't want to go to prison because of these people that have got their head all screwed on backwards. And if I had a daughter and she came home and told me that the boys were coming into the bathroom, the girls' bathroom, and claimed that the boys were claiming they were girls, well, heads would roll, because I have these tools that each and every one of the people listening to us today can have those same tools and not put up with the school board, not put up with City Hall, not put up with your next door neighbor, or somebody's trying to put you out of business saying you got rats in the kitchen and you're at your restaurant or whatever it is.
Or you have to vaccinate your employees or something.
You don't have to mortgage the home to hire a lawyer to get justice. It's not that hard to do. And if you do hire a lawyer, then, don't be like the guy that takes his car in that needs a fan belt and they want to sell you an exhaust system.
Right.
Learn what it's all about.
Direct that lawyer. I say, if you got a lawyer, if you have to have a lawyer, you still better know that you're in control. And if he won't let you be in control, you're screwed.
Get another lawyer.
Get another lawyer. Yep. You got to make sure he understands who directs the show, and it'll work out well.
I even have a class in the reference menu on how to hire a lawyer and some of the things that people need to know before you sign on the dotted line, and put the lawyer on notice up front. This is the way it's going to be. You work for me. I don't work for you. And you're going to do these things and you're going to keep me informed about everything. And if you don't, you're going to have a problem because you're going to sign this piece of paper that I prepared for you to sign. That will be our agreement. Oh yeah, you've got an agreement for me to sign as your client, but you're going to sign one for me as my attorney, promising me in writing in an enforceable agreement I can take to court if you try to mess with me. That'll change things. And that's in the reference menu, how to hire a lawyer.
And if you won't sign it, then you probably have the wrong lawyer, because
go down the street.
It's okay if they don't. It's okay. You don't have to rush. You can always ask for time if you're dealing with lawyers. The courts will give you time.
Something like 1 out of every 1,000 people in Florida, I think, is a licensed attorney. It's out of control.
Jeez. Now I know all the streets are so slick down there. Jeez. Yeah, so I mean, there again, you've given a few examples of the kinds of cases. I mean, I'm sure you've seen people deal with debt collectors, criminal cases, civil cases. Any particular ones you can think of that you can generically talk about?
Couple of them. Couple of my favorites. One was a fellow that told me he was facing a 30-year prison term, and he beat it just by using what I teach in the course, which is common sense, and it's easy to learn. Another one called me on the phone one time, and he said, I just have to thank you. And okay, that's wonderful. He said, I haven't been able to see my children for 3 years, 3 or 5. I don't remember exactly how many, but it was several years. And he said, now I have full custody, and it's all because of your course. Well, it's not because of me. Okay, I didn't create this stuff. I didn't invent it. I just think God's given me a gift to be able to make complicated things easy to understand. And I just thought it would be fun to try to share it with the public. I had no idea it was going to be so out of control as it is becoming. Yeah. But we are helping people, and we're helping people who have the responsibility to try to help themselves and try to help others. Because once you know this, and then you have a neighbor or a friend and they're in trouble, you can tell them. You don't have to be a lawyer to tell somebody the truth. There's no rule against it, by golly, and we'll stand up for that.
Mhm. Famously, some of our best lawyers in history were self-taught. Abraham Lincoln and so forth. People really can do these things. It's always made to be sound so spooky and scary, and of course, if you're rushing and you're doing it after the problem starts, it gets harder because your emotions get in the way. And
Well,
I tell people, you can't buy these. It's hard to buy the insurance after the fire starts. So start
it
studying
certainly is.
now.
Well, let me jump in with this because you mentioned that. I was amazed some years ago, the rules of evidence in every federal case, civil or criminal, every federal courtroom ruled by these rules of evidence. Several years ago, when I first saw it, it was 19 pages. Last printout I did from Google, I think it was 23 pages. That's the rules of evidence. And a lot of those pages are filled with what we call commentaries. They're not the rule itself. You have the rule, and then there's some commentary. So really, all the rules of evidence for every federal court could probably be printed on about 8 or 10 pages. And then the question comes up, why are we allowing these people to hide this from us and our children? I don't get it. So I keep telling people, let's just get angry about it. I think we should all be angry that we've been denied this knowledge that makes them rich and keeps us down.
Well, Jesus wasn't real fond of lawyers and the law. I mean, he said, we said in there it says we perish for our lack of knowledge. And I tell people is you don't perish for your lack of knowledge, or you don't perish for your lack of a good lawyer. You perish for your lack of knowledge of the law. And then if you can figure that little bit out, learn these procedures and things like that, you're on your way. And and then he even said, "Woe to you and lawyers, for you've taken away the keys of knowledge." In other words, we depend on hidden keys, like that's right, and we depend on them. Therefore, to sort of, if you will, we're almost asking them to hide it from us, in a sense. And we have to be very careful. We have to be that one, like you said. If you do have a lawyer, you need to be directing things. You need to pull the rules of evidence and rules of procedures out and say, are we doing this? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? I mean, you've got to just, it's not that hard to pull these things out. As you said, you can pull it up on Google and ask them if everything is being done. Direct them. And if they aren't, do it yourself. You do have a right to be pro se.
You have a right to stay out of prison. You have a right to get your kids back when somebody lies about you. You have a right to sue these people that tried to put you out of business by saying you have rats in the kitchen and so forth. And the list goes on. But rights don't do you a whole lot of good if you don't know how to enforce them. So what we're trying to give people, and you are too, and we're working together. There's a lot of us that are believing the same thing now, that if we don't know how to enforce our rights, then they're just promises. And if you have to mortgage the home and run the risk that you got one of those lawyers that's afraid of judges, so I could tell a story about that.
Oh man,
afraid to just stand up for their client because they didn't want to make the judge angry. What the heck's that all about?
Yeah, I've told people, I said, I've seen examples of this too firsthand, where people had a lawyer like that. Then they learned a few things. They started standing up and realized it wasn't that hard. And they were able to do more than that lawyer can do, because you can do and say things that lawyer won't do because he's afraid of his relationship with the prosecutor, his relationship with the judge, or his next case he's going to bring before this judge. You don't have to worry about that. You got nothing to lose.
It's your life.
Yeah.
It's your life. Why put it in the hands of somebody who may not have your interest at heart? He may just want to be buying the swimming pool for his wife, and so forth and so on. So please forgive me, other members of the bar that may be listening to this, but let's face the face, okay? Let's see what it is.
Most of them will know it.
That's why we have a bar organization supposed to be controlling you people, and it isn't. So wake up.
Yeah. Well, they control our government. They're supposed to be citizens running these offices in government, not lawyers. If you go way back in history, that's how it was supposed to be. But we advocated it to them. So,
well, we need to teach the people. We need to teach our children. I want to start in the first grade and teach the children that a thing similar is not exactly the same. Can I just go off on that for just a minute and show you how easy that would be to do?
Sure.
And okay, thank you. So if I had an animator, a good animator, that won't be me, but an animator, maybe 2 or 3, and some talented, clever people, we'd create an animation with some cute little guy. He'd come in, a little funny guy. He could be in a little animal person or whatever. And he sets up on the shelf, he sets up a banana and an apple and a peach and a tennis ball. And then he talks to the kids, and do you see any similarities here? And then the kids have to talk, and maybe the teacher has to kind of guide them to think about, well, yeah, 3 of them are round, 3 of them are fruit. You know, are the 2 round fruit, are they the same? Anyway, so you have this experience, I call it a justice experience, which actually comes from one of the fundamental maxims of common law that was written by a man named Blackstone before our Declaration of Independence. And the idea is that a thing that's similar, by definition, is not the same. Getting those kinds of thoughts into their minds, believe it or not, those kinds of thoughts are the kind of thinking that we were trained to do over a period of 3 years by reading these old appellate court opinions, 9 out of 10 of which are simply stories about people like Mrs. Palsgraf on the Long Island Railroad. This little old lady is trying to get on this steam engine pulled train to get on the Pullman car. A firecracker goes off, and this happened and that happened, and she sued the railroad. It's just a story. It could be animated. We could be teaching this to our children. And give me half a chance, and I will see to it that it gets done, and that we convince the mothers and fathers of this country that the time has come, and we are not going to have another generation left in the dark by the bar hiding the ball. That be okay with anybody?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I need help. And it's not the people with the white suits coming to get me.
Right.
I need help to make this happen. And you've been helping me, and I really appreciate it. We've known
You're
each
welcome.
other for what, 10 years now, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
At
bless
least.
your heart.
Hey, you know what? I just had one little ideas. We may talk this on the side, but you know, if you have those examples or stories laid out, I think I know of a tool that might actually make that possible to do. It's a self animator that comes from storytelling. I think I've seen something like that, so we'll look into that.
Well, we'll get to get a team, but anyway, in the meantime, you are promoting justice education, and
Yep.
people need it, and it makes me I get to do this. I don't know how much longer I'll be breathing, but as long as I breathe, I think it's something that absolutely needs to be done, and I'll never give up. I believe in this, and I think ultimately, if what I believe is possible, then I believe that ultimately what's going to happen is that some of the people in the bar are going to finally begin to realize that they can do a better job of educating themselves, and they can take some responsibility of participating in this mission to educate the children and the American public to understand what they've been hiding from us. As Jesus said, woe to you lawyers, for you've hidden the keys of knowledge, and those who would have learned, you prevented them. Well, that needs to stop, and let it be now, and let it be us that does the work to make it stop. Right?
Absolutely. It has to be us. I mean, if not, I don't see anybody else standing around waiting to do it. So
my dog isn't going to do it.
No, my dog might do the same thing. She's rubbing on my leg. That's about she's good. But you know, that's what. But I really totally agree. Because I mean, I've been around this and seen so many stories and so many examples of what doesn't work, what does work, and you know, people always ask me the question, "Well, tell me what to do. What works?" And I said, "Well, what works is knowledge." Yep. And second thing is procedures, and then you know you got to learn some definitions and start to educate yourself, and that's what we've always stood for. So, along with you, it's been a lot of help.
You've done good work.
Thank you, and wish we were always right, but we're definitely not that. But we're definitely pushing people in the right direction most of the time. And so I appreciate your compliments there, Dr. Graves, as well. Do you have any final comments you'd like to add before we go?
Only the truth is true. Nothing else is. And if a person chooses to believe something that's not true because it sounds good, then I feel bad for them. But it's something that we have to understand. There's an awful lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah.
I have to say this. I have become fully persuaded that that misinformation is being created by people who are trying to tear down our democratic way of life by undermining the American people's confidence in this system of law, which again is a set of rules. It's not people. The system of law that you have is a set of rules that work for you. They're fair, they're honest, they'll help the little guy. If the little guy is obedient to the law, they're definitely your friend, the system of rules. But there are people who don't want democracy. They don't believe in democracy. They believe the best kind of government is an autocracy, which is run by one or a handful of men or women who are going to tell you what to wear and what to eat and when time to get up and so forth. And they promote this misinformation. I mean, I remember one person said that she could copyright her name, and the police officer, when he stopped him, couldn't write her name on a ticket because she'd copyrighted her name. I mean, it's that insane.
Right.
But there are ideas out there that are being promoted by people who are not your friend.
Yeah, they definitely, if it's going in that what I call la la land, I I always tell this example. I said, so let's say that you're you've become a sovereign citizen. You're glow in the dark. You know what that is? It's somebody that says I've endorsed my birth certificate, and what I've done all these things. I've authenticated and done these things. I said, that's all great. That's all great. But let's say that a regular guy and a sovereign citizen are standing on the edge of a building 10 stories high, and they both jump at the same time. Which one hits the ground first?
About the same time.
About the same time. And in the end, it doesn't matter, does it? Because they took the action, which was a bad decision. That's my point. Stop taking bad decisions. Stop taking bad actions. You're going to have, no matter what you think you got, if you take the action, you're going to have to deal with that. And dealing with it directly sometimes is a lot more common sense than you'd think, as opposed to just jumping off the cliff. Or, at least if you're going to jump, make sure somebody puts a little rubber thing down there or something for you to jump into. You got to be smart, but don't let something that sounds too good to be true talk you into doing something crazy and thinking that you're immune. You can't go, you can be as out of the system as you want, but if you go shoot somebody, you're going to get arrested. Now what? You still got to go right back and deal with it.
Well, there is a thought that came to my mind. Maybe I can share this with people and I thank you for your time very, very, very much. I used to go sailing. I was navigator on a 148-foot ocean-going vessel. And I had a little sailboat that I built, a little 33-footer in my backyard. And I used to go offshore. And whenever I went offshore, I would take a chart and a compass. And I also insisted on having a really good anchor and a length of anchor line and chain. But I wouldn't go without a chart and a compass. I had people that wanted me. I used to spend a lot of time in Miami at Coconut Grove, living on my little 25-footer as a young fella. And people would want me to sail with them over to the Bahamas. And I said, well, do you have the chart? Oh, we don't need a chart. It's just the Bahamas. I said, well, y'all go on, bye. I won't be going with you because I want to have a chart and I want to have a compass. Well, this country was built on the idea that there is a chart and there most absolutely certainly is a compass. And excuse me for saying so, but that compass is a man who was nailed to a cross and left there to die by a bunch of people who sought the preeminence. There's that word again, the preeminence that men seek that creates all kinds of evil. And we need to stand up, whether you want to believe in religion or who that person was that got nailed to that cross. I would hope that every single last heart-beating person that hears my voice right now understands that is unacceptable. And we need law and order, and we need government, and we need a government that operates according to a set of rules that the people not only understand, but that are being taught those rules from their infancy, all through the public school that we're paying for. They need to understand those rules so no more people get nailed to crosses. It isn't right. It's never been right. It will never be right. But if we don't stand up for it and learn these rules to protect the innocent, then we don't deserve justice. We don't deserve liberty. Amen.
Amen. Of the people, by the people, and for the people, and needs to include the people. And you've got to be the one. It's not up to somebody else. It's not somebody we elected last week. It's not some lawyer. It's not the DOJ, not the judge. It's you. You get to control the judge if you understand those rules. So thanks for your insights on that, Dr. Graves.
Just comes to me. I didn't invent any of it.
I hear it, but it's like, well, you're like me in the sense that you're communicating thoughts and ideas in a way that hopefully people can understand, and doing your part along the way. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
I thank you, everybody, for listening in on this telecast today. Again, our link is urlaw.org/JD. That's how you get over to the course information. That's /JD. And again, thanks for being here. We'll see you hopefully again soon, Dr. Graves.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. And we'll see you all next time, folks.